Quick disclaimer, I am not good at Decaying Winter, especially with this perk that we're going to talk about, because my playstyle is kind of different, but recently I've been learning how to play it more, so hopefully it's kind of portrays. The gameplay footage will not show that, but I played a lot more afterwards, so just putting that out there. Welcome to our perk guide to Decaying Winter. Today we'll be looking at the mind-controlling robot Freakalope guy, the Mindflayer, controlling the enemies with low spider robots, probably because they're low-key into it, I'm not sure. As per usual, we'll be going over the perk's pros and cons, the ability, traits and equipment to run, and some gameplay tips to help better your understanding with the Mindflayer. Again, like I said, to the best of my ability, as much as I've been playing it more, I'm still not very good at the perk. Starting with the pros, we have fast movement speed, allowing us to zoom in if we need, or get out of dodge. Faster shoving, which is kind of actually nice considering that shoves have been nerfed, like shove lingering. And reduced crafting costs, which I'll talk about later, which is very important actually. On the downside however, we get reduced recoil control, which actually isn't too bad with paired with a trait, and a reduction to our defense, meaning you'll definitely feel the pain. Onto the ability, we have the MD.K1LR-68 prototype, but for you and I, specifically from my brain, we're just going to call it a spider. This ability is actually very unique on how it works. When you press out, the little spider will go onto your arm and jump down to the ground. While seemingly it doesn't do anything right now, let's say you have a scab that has 79 HP or lower and is close by the spider, it will actually latch onto the face for a second, and it will take control out of that scab for about 35 seconds, or till it dies. Now, when this happens, the spider will be gone. It doesn't latch onto another enemy if like the scab dies or whatever. It's just like every other perk, it will recharge just like a Blitzer. Now, when a scab is taken over, it will actually replenish all its HP it lost, regardless of how much you actually bullied it, and I believe supposedly gets a damage increase. I'm unsure about this, however, I've been seeing my scabs do a bit more damage than normal. Do note though that it can hurt you in the process of being mind killed, like a melee hitting you or a shotgun randomly shooting, or your team can kind of just kill your mind kill scab. And furthermore, it retains any of the debuffs it has, such as fracture from a shrapnel device. Now for traits, there's actually a bit that you can run with the Mindflayer. It kind of depends though how you want to run it. Firstly, Impatient. This is personally my go-to trait as well for everything. You're already really fast with the Mindflayer. Increasing it with Impatient, you're basically like a 8 to 10 dog tag hero almost. It's really fast, so it doesn't hurt, right? Fearless and Dependable. These can work hand in hand to help lower your reduced defense, to give you at least a little bit more buffer if you're very unconfident with taking damage, because you have a 25% decrease in defense, which is pretty bad compared to a lot of other perks. Survivor, if you actually want to heal up some damage, you may have taken some random scav or like chip damage. Professional for recoil control and violent tendencies. You're going to run this if you're going to do the Pava strat, which I will mention later. For equipment, there's also a variety. If you want to run Ballistic Dagger, you can, but don't use it the front line. It's not your job first of all, and it's not something you should use. If you really want a front line, God forbid, I don't know why you would, use the Caldera Black. But for the Ballistic Dagger, I personally don't use it anymore because of the nerfs, but that's just me. Now speaking of Caldera, you can also use that for defense, the morale reduction, and even steady camera aim if you really want. Throwing knives, ever since their buff with the new update, really handy to get extra rations and basically instant kills. And you'll definitely gonna need rations. And finally, though I said it before, shrapnel device. I did mention that any mind kill scabs will retain debuffs. Shrapnel device gives fracture, but if used properly, it can actually give you and your goons an advantage, but only use it if you're actually very experienced with this perk. Not me. Now here's where we start putting the pieces together. Firstly, pay attention to those ration bars, specifically the water one, because that's where your defense comes in. Because due to your already crippling defense reduction in the first place, which is 25%, if you were in the red, aka dehydrated, you now have a reduction of 55% defense, which means your brains are going to be mauled out. Combine that with at least 1 morale, you're probably screwed. You're probably going to get 1 or 2 shotted. With 4 morale, you're definitely 1 shotted, no matter what. Now, besides all that, let's say you gain a little bit of heat. You can actually hurt a scav and then throw a spider in front of you, so that way the scav running at you will get the mind kill. Very helpful as well if there's more scavs following you, so they can take the aggro. It takes a lot of heat off of you. But keep in mind though, that it will still drop the rations if it's in the looting phase, so make sure you go back to the body and grab them. In terms of infection, unlike most perks, this is actually kind of important to you. Because if you get to stage 3 or higher, you know, the defense reduction, the health reduction, the tonight, you know, all that stuff, it's gonna hinder you a lot more than usual with already, you know, your crippling defense, like I said before. But stage 2, however, it's okay if you get there, because it's only a 10% movement decrease. And you're already so fast if you pick Impatient, which I believe is 15%, don't quote me on that. So really, you're just getting a 5% movement speed from Impatient. You get the idea. It's basically, if you take Impatient or not, it's okay, because stage 2 is just a small hindrance in your movement speed. Which is really good if your team doesn't have any antis. And if you're on stage 1, just offer to your team, because you can take it, you can tank that. In terms of getting mind kills, if you want a gun scav like a shotgunner, be mindful of the surroundings, such as any kind of melee, especially a sledger, Jesus Christ, and wait for them to reload. It's really the best time to get them, but don't shove, because they'll actually aimbot you immediately after unstunning. Now, in terms of weapons you really want to use, low recoil or shotguns are your best friends. Or, my personal favorite now is actually the millbow, because it's really easy to pick off scavs in the first place and actually get mind kills. And it's actually pretty cheap if you come to think about it, because like I said before, you have reduced crafting cost, which means instead of 5 or 10 with the profit, it's actually 2. So every time you get scrap from a pile, it's already paying itself out basically. So why I say this is because if you're trying to make quivers, you need about 3 or 4 like crafting, so that's 8 for you, which would be 40 for profit and like 20 for somebody else. So that's why I say millbow is actually really good for you, because you can just craft them infinitely, which you don't really need to, but like I said. But this also goes hand in hand with violent tendencies, like I mentioned before, which is the Pavis strat. If you're going to do this, you're going to be crafting a comically large amount of Pavises for your team. Why Pavises is because they actually block bullets, which nobody wants to get shot by a bullet, especially a sniper. And like I said, due to violent tendencies, you're just going to be smacking them a lot more, and like I said, only 2 scrap for you, making you that guy. If you want to speed this up though, a bludgeon or an axe will actually considerably fasten this up, because axes are good for the wood or pickaxe, weirdly enough, or a bludgeon for the rocks. Now this is just kind of the basics for Mindflayer. It's kind of actually a weirdly difficult perk to actually use, so you may die a fair bit, like me in the video, probably. Before getting a grasp on how Mindflayer really uses their role and what the position is like. Other than that, I did not take a month for this video, so you're welcome.